Hey guys, welcome to the Leadership to Wealth podcast. On today's show, we have a mentor, a coach. He helps people build businesses that make a lot of money with Amazon. One of the things that he's realized is having a market right there that you don't need to search for, and teaching you how to build, how to brand, how to do all of these things within that Amazon network. But on top of that, he also talks about life and how he got into multiple businesses and all the failures along the way, which are invaluable to our journey, to each one of us as we build leadership in our own lives to wealth. Today's show, Neil Twa. All right. Thank you guys for joining us today on Leadership to Wealth podcast. And on today's show, we have with us Neil Twa, the man who helps people and has been helping people since 2007 to build businesses, especially in e-commerce. Neil, so glad to have you on the Neil and Neil show today.
The Neil and Neil show. Woohoo. Yeah, it's great to be here. As we were in the green room a minute ago, I apologize for any brain fog I might bring to this conversation today. So if I pause, it's not the internet out here in the country. It's probably me trying to catch up.
Yeah. So you're and you're recovering from you actually caught the thing that no one knows for sure if it's real or not, but you got it.
It's like the Harry Potter thing. It's the name that shall not be mentioned, right? So we are, it's that thing that you shall not say. But we're okay. We're doing all right. I have a family of 6 and I got 4 young children, 13 and under, all girls. Wow. And we walked through it just fine. We're coming through the last stages of it. And one of the things we were joking about was the brain fog component of it. Or do we feel that a little bit? And I think, before you brought it up, I wouldn't have been able to say that. But I think now, there's a little brain fog going on.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Now, COVID's always a hot topic, but you got 4 girls.
I do.
That sounds a whole lot more devastating than
people with 1 or 2 daughters are like, are you insane?
I mean, I got 4 kids as well, but I got 2 girls and then 2 boys. And I can't imagine living in a house with 5 girls.
I couldn't imagine living in a house with 5 boys. So, and I have friends who have all boys, and we play that game a lot. They're like, I can't believe you have all girls, and I'm like, I don't have any idea. Like, but I'm not like a girly guy. I'm not the metro. I live in the country, man. I shoot squirrels off my deck. I have tractors, and I live on 40 acres. And my girls are country girls, and they like to jokingly be that because they've done judo. They help me chop wood. They take care of their chores. They're tougher than some of the boys. That we hang around, which just kind of makes Dad proud, of course.
Yeah, listen, I love that. That is pretty cool, especially when, as a dad, right? Having 2 girls, I can say that is pretty. It is pretty fulfilling when you can see them take up some of these things and even succeed in
challenge them. Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my daughters was big into gymnastics for a while, and feminine, male, whatever, any of that kind of stuff. For me, I just love watching any of my kids compete.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like that's the male gene in there. You just love watching them compete. And she would always do this thing when she would, just before she was about to start, she would get up and she would look at the apparatus she was about to go to. She was smiling a second ago, and that just would disappear, and it looked like a killer staring at the apparatus that she's about to go attack. And then she turns to the judges and smiles, puts her hands up, and off she goes.
Do it. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness. I actually secretly named her serial killer for a while.
That's awesome.
But as a father, pretty proud moment to see some of those things. And you said your daughters did some judo there too, right?
Yeah, they were, and it's fun to see which ones are most apt to do it. The 2 middle weren't quite as excited. The older girl and the younger girl were just like, I mean, my 13-year-old is extremely strong for a girl, and the younger one just doesn't know her own strength and tenacity yet. And so she broke her collarbone in the process of doing it, because she just went in and went all full. And the younger boys that were trying to compete with her were getting torqued off because she kept flipping them and taking. And dad's like, yeah, she's just all in. And of course, mom had to give a pause, because when she broke her collarbone, she's just like, okay, well, we can't put them, and they're not boys. And I'm like, well, I know that.
No, actually, they're in judo. They're better off than boys because they've got a lower center of gravity to be able to
exactly.
To do
exactly. At 6'4", man, I'm like the big tree in Sequoia that will like fall and kill everything on its way down. It's like, it's a long way for me to hit the ground on the mat from 6'4". Yeah, so yeah, shorter is better when it comes to that. Lot less distance to fall.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What's it? The fulcrum or whatever.
Yes. Yes.
So let's step back for the viewers here. Let's go back one step, and what we're going to start with is tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Grew up, all that kind of stuff. Now we know you got 6 in the family, 4 girls. So you're a little psychotic, but
definitely psychotic. Wait to hear the rest
a little bit about
story.
Before that happened.
Well, I mean, technically, I am from Missouri. I was born in northern Missouri, a place called Independence. But when I was 2, my parents moved to Arizona, and by the time I was 3, we ended up in Oregon. So from the age 3 until I graduated high school, that's where I grew up. I grew up in the cul-de-sac, but we would go out all the time from the little town there called Medford in Southern Oregon, and be out all the time in the country somewhere. It was an hour to 300, 600 inches of snow. There was things to play in. There was skiing. There was snowmobiling, and there was cross country, and there was dog sleds, and there was, outdoor camping, and just, a lot of stuff to do. So I really enjoyed growing up in Oregon. And it was a really cool place to be. But by the time I got to about 17, 18, when I graduated, because of my birthday, I actually turned 18 in February and graduated in May. So I was on that side of things. But I had an opportunity for a music scholarship for a liberal arts college out in Iowa that picked me up. So for classical and jazz, I had some good time in high school, and went all state and got a good amount of scholarships put together, and went to school. So I thought I was going to be a musician. No, trumpet. Yeah, no, I played trumpet, classical and jazz.
Nice.
Yep. And so I very much enjoyed that. It's that competitive edge was always about being first chair, and the trumpets were always kind of the dominant force in the orchestra. Whether people don't know that, there's like the hierarchical. It's like a mafia, but there's levels to it, right? Like the drummers are the bagmen, and you got the it's how it goes. So I definitely loved the trumpet component of it, and loved music. And music was flexibility and creation. And while I liked the ability to be in flow with the orchestra, I very much appreciated the jazz more than anything. The flexibility, the creativity, the artisticness of it, the fact that you could just feel the music and go with it was a big component of what I very much enjoyed about it. I think more than I enjoyed the concept of even working in it or making it a career. So by the time I got to my 3rd year in college, I realized, as I like to joke, that if I didn't figure my life out, I was going to be living in a van down by the river, playing jazz to the fish. So I better figure out what to do. So I jumped into computers and science, and I got a work study job at the local.
Whoa, hang on, that's a bit of a jump that you just went from playing the trumpet to jumping over to computers.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were online. I'm not that old, but here comes computers, right? Here's the internet. Here's 3.1, and then there was up to Windows 95, and it was like, what is this? Like, this is insane. This is cool. And the university had the money, and nobody else had computers. And so I got a position to go to the work study group, and moved over to that in the computer lab, where they were doing that. And we were learning how to do it along with the people that worked there, because no one knew what the hell they were doing.
Right.
And we all learned on the job, if you will. So for $4.25 an hour, when I wasn't in school or playing jazz, I was learning how to do computers. And they say, do computers. Because everybody was. So yeah, as I got through that, I realized I had an aptitude for it, and I had a passion for the machines and what they could do, and the idea of the internet and the technology that was coming seemed just absolutely fascinating. And when I put my first web page up, that's when I realized I was going to really want to do this business of online somehow. And it was a bargain guy's website. It was like an eBay for local university trades, and we were just putting people together to sell their things back and forth at the local. And I realized ecom at that level was a good starting block, and I really wanted to know more. But the university said, hey, computer science is COBOL, Fortran, and the server side. And I'm like, I don't want to live on the green screen for the rest of my life. Are you kidding me? So they said, well, go transfer to a university called CMSU in Warrensburg, which has a very good computer science department. I said, okay. I spent a semester there. And that's when I dropped out because I met a dude from who was consulting as an engineer and a programmer out of Kansas City. And he said, I'm making like $60 an hour. I'm programming these new technologies called active server pages. And we're using HTML and all this stuff, which to us now is like old school. But for that, it was like brand new. And I'm like, tell me more about what all that is. Yeah. And he said, well, you're not going to learn it here, but you need to get out and go learn it in the workforce. And I took that advice. So I jumped out, and instead of paying, $20,000 a year, I went and got an $18,000 a year job. And just started to teach myself the rest of the computers, the programming for web interfaces and active server pages, which really led me into the business side of it and really understanding how to make money with those. But I knew that it was still so new to the world that there wasn't a curriculum, a track, or something I could go do. I had to continue to evolve in the corporate world. And so I followed that track, and that led me into Sprint.
Were you not scared leaving school and jumping straight into that?
No, because I went from paying money to making money. I wasn't that scared. I was like, I went into a job where I was making, $17 an hour. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I was working on networking computers inside of banks. And so I was learning, how to do the business, and it was a small firm. And so I got to learn a lot of the components of the business and understanding how he ran this little shop. So no, I wasn't really scared. I'd like to, my partner of 9 years now in business knows very much that my job is to jump off the cliff, even if I have no parachute. And he has now learned to jump with me, but take all the materials necessary to build a parachute on the way down. And so I don't have that kind of fear. I'll just jump off the cliff. And so I continually did that. And I jumped off of that cliff into another one that led to another job that eventually led me into a full-time position at Sprint PCS right as they were launching the first mobile phone, which was really fascinating. I was like the 5,000th employee that they had gathered. They were literally hiring warm bodies. So that was total opportunity because I didn't have a degree, but I had the skill sets necessary. And so I went right into managing a group of 6 people when I was 21.
Okay, hang on. Let me pause you for 1 second.
Yeah.
You got there's so many pieces here that are amazing. But this idea of being able to jump off a cliff without a parachute, right? Meaning jump into whatever the next project is or the next thing that you want to work on without the safety net. But you also mentioned even your partner even having the ability to bring the materials along to build it along the way. Can you say something more about that? Because I think one of the challenges that people face these days is there are these things that they want to do. There are the projects, the businesses, all of these things that they want to get into, but there is not a way to be able to assess that risk.
Yes.
Or should I be jumping over? And is it possible to build a parachute as you go down? And I think that's there's almost been a shift in society where people would do that a lot more readily, and no one looked at it as a risk. It was just part of life.
Yes.
If you were getting into business, whereas now that's sort of missing. So can you say something about that ability to be able to jump off?
Well, for me, again, the fluidity of I think the musical side of me,
because it's what you teach right now too, right?
Well, it is, because I really get people to understand the concept that there is no perfect business model. That if you take 80% of
wait, got to time you out there.
Yeah,
you guys are watching. I hope you caught that, right? There is no perfect business model.
There is no perfect business model. There is 80% tenacity, go-getter, and drive, and some level of confidence and insanity that says, no matter what people say, I'm going to do it anyways. And then there's 20% of whichever model you choose to do, whether it be podcasting, if you're going to start an e-com company, if you're going to go out and, start a car wash business or go start up a franchise. The whole point is that's 20%. That's it. The 80% is literally you. It's your confidence. It's your clarity and understanding the business and expectations of the model. And it's your ability to communicate, sell, or drive the business so that others understand what the expectations are of you or their roles within the business. And we refer to those in the world as objectives and key results. Do you know what the objective is? Do you understand the key results? If you do that, then you know how to apply that to your time management, to the opportunity, and of course the focus. Then you can do that model and be successful in any ways. I have people I know that are successful in all kinds of business models. What made them different than anybody else? They are tenacious. They chose, they were okay with failing and failing fast. So that's part of that jumping off the cliff is I'm okay. I've hit the bottom a number of times. I mean, I've literally been divorced. I've been bankrupt. I have restarted companies. I've lost great ideas. I've had people steal money from me. I've been sued in business. I've hit the floor a lot of times. The difference is I was tenacious enough or stupid enough, whichever side you like to look at it, to get up and keep going and just decide that I wasn't going to give up.
Yeah. Now, I guess what I'm curious in that is because you've been helping people build businesses for so many years now. How do you, are you able to teach that, or does someone just have to have that coming in?
Great question. The answer is, again, it goes back to Pareto's law a little bit because it's an 80-20. When I'm talking to people and looking to find out whether or not I can actually make an impact in their life, it isn't whether or not I believe that they could understand the mechanics of selling with the business. It is, do they understand business?
Right.
Do they understand the expectations of business? Do they understand the time, money, financial, emotional commitments that are required to do that? As Jim Good said in the Good to Great book, or Jim Collins, excuse me, from the Good to Great book said, are you willing to pick the rock up and look at the ugly, squiggly things that are underneath it? Those are one of the differences between the people that I choose to work with and offer their opportunity to mentor with us, as we only do mentoring, or the ones who I just simply say, you're not a great fit. Right. And one of the greatest ways to test that out is when you say no to somebody. Neil, what happens?
When I say no to them in terms of to work together?
If somebody's excited to be with you or come on, or they want to be on your podcast and you say no, what happened?
Yeah, usually they just disappear.
They disappear, right? Yeah. So those people I will not mentor.
Right.
The ones that I look to mentor are the ones that come back.
Right.
Yeah. It's the end. That's literally what it gets down to. The ones that are not willing to take no for an answer, because if they understand that in business, there's a difference between KNOW and a no. And then there's a difference between a no and a hell no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have had to fire an investor who I don't know, he had $8 million, so he thought he should get special treatment. And
most of us do. Don't we all?
And he's been chasing me for a couple of years now, and keeps coming back. I keep saying no because I gave him a second chance, and and there was no change. There was an entitlement. There was, the world needs to fall at my feet, and so that was what'd you say? That's the hell no.
That's the hell no. Yeah. And it goes both ways. And
I'm not working with you. Move on. Go find someone else.
It has to do with the aptitude of the person when it gets down to it. Are they, and have they faced things in their lives where they have failed, okay, and have picked themselves up, and in some capacity in their life, whatever it has been that they've brought to the table before we've even had a conversation about what we're doing, have they had success and failures? Measurable.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I literally won't do business with people who tell me life is peachy and nothing has ever gone wrong with them.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the first major thing that's ever gone wrong in their life to happen on my time.
Right. Right. Well, in this case, I'll say that this individual clearly had, they've been through a lot. They've had a lot of success. But what they lost in somewhere along the way was the ability to treat people as human beings. So
there's a big problem with that.
Right?
There's the emotional part of that. And one of the things I was mentioning a minute ago, and part of that answer was the emotional rejection that people feel. They feel that they are being personally rejected. Not that you're being rejected as a fundamental core of who you are. It is the concept that I reject the idea that you and I can do something together. Well, how dare you? It's like, but the difference between and where you are here and why you do your podcast and why it's called Leadership to Wealth is to understand how do you surround yourself with people like my partner, who I have the creativity and flexibility to test new things, do new things, and try new things. But has a very strong net around me now, who understands to let me do that. They don't try to hold me back. And if you look at the difference in the people, at least that who are successful, the ones that I know, they are surrounded by people who let them jump.
Right.
And people like Elion and others would not be where they were if there wasn't a support mechanism to be right below whatever they jump off of. SpaceX wouldn't exist after PayPal and after this and after Tesla and so on and so forth if there wasn't a grounded crew that literally sits right below him that ensures that other things get done. So you can't have two fundamental entrepreneurs with, ADHD and type A personalities running a company. And I noticed that there's a lot of people that are attempting to do that. They think that someone else will pick up the difference for them in that leadership. And what you have to realize is that I'm willing to take 80% of the lead in the leadership and still fail and accept that while giving other people their opportunity to become leaders in their particular area of focus and not get in their way or step on what they do very well. Right. And there's a trust and a respectful relationship to that. You do not get to whatever you define as wealth without that. Right. And everybody coins the term wealth as a phrase of money. And I want to just like myself put that out here. Wealth is your health. Wealth is your family relationship. Wealth is your structure of your life. Wealth could be your location where you live. Wealth could be having food at all in your fridge. Wealth could be having a roof over your head at all. Wealth is whatever you define it as, right? Wealth is not and should not be the number one answer as a monetary or financial or fiscal gain. If it is, I will disqualify you.
Right. I like to call it the F's, the faith, the family, finance, fitness. I even throw fighting in there because I like
fighting. Fighting's a good one. And would throw out fear, right? Because fear is being put up there at the top of those F's. And really that's the F bomb. Like, because so many people do not understand that to jump is not that I don't have some aspect of fear. It's that I'm feeling it and I'm doing it anyways.
Wow.
Well, okay, that's a big difference. So I get to people who understand that concept right there has nothing to do with whether you sell e-com or cars. Or even if you do a podcast, it has to do with the fact that you're going to feel that fear and keep doing it until either the fear subsides or your support network helps you overcome any of those challenges you've been doing on your own as you grow out of that. Right.
Fear. Absolutely. This is really interesting that you would point this out because I literally just had this conversation with my daughter last night, where one of my daughters, my oldest, and we were talking about the difference. I said, what's the difference between me putting out 100 pieces of content on social media and someone else who puts out one piece of social media? And I said, are the mechanics the same? She said, yeah, but you're doing more. I said, yeah,
right.
But the mechanic is the same, right? So I said, so what's actually the difference? And I said, it's the attitude about it, right? My judgment over it is so insignificant because I let other people judge my material but the person who only puts out one, there's so much judgment in it that it takes them forever to put out that one piece of content. And I said that really boils down to fear and
someone will criticize you or reject what you did. And on a fundamental level, you will have a hard time getting past that. And that is one of the bigger things that we work on as entrepreneurs every day, I think, because people think, well, you're just doing great every week. Well, no, every week is not like that. It really is a up and down, sideways, spaghetti looking aspect of an emotional roller coaster ride of challenges that every business owner faces. And the ones that say they don't are lying. to sell you something, literally.
Well, I mean, you just think of what you and I went through to even get this this interview together. I mean, this happening, and you got sick, and I got sick, and you know, all of this different stuff, and scheduling conflicts, and that's all part and parcel. And most people would never know any of the things that are occurring in the background.
Yes,
because it's sort of that duck on the water. The feet are going crazy under the water, but up top, everything looks fairly serene.
Well, that's just it. We have to be careful not to fall into that. The two professional videos that make everything look great, and the idea, the concept that there is no struggles and all this thing, all of my problems will be solved in a quick scratch and sniff mentality. I call it the lottery mindset mentality that we got going on, where I can literally just scratch and sniff my way to wealth. You mean it takes 12 months to build a business? No, I'm out. It's not 30 days. No, it's not how it works. The people who are selling you something that says it'll be done in 30 days, they're like 6 years into it. They didn't explain the rest of that. And I think the world is craving that transparency. I feel it anyways. So my goal is to be transparent, answer the questions, talk about the bad things too, not just the good things. Because those are partly what define what I consider to be good now. What I thought was good previously is very different than the good I feel now. And it only came after a major failure or a major bad thing.
That is so interesting. I actually preach this as one of my secrets to success is anyone that deals with me knows that I'm going to give them the worst case scenario. And I'm going to work from the worst case scenario. What are the projected numbers? I'm like, those are fictitious. How about we look at what it's actually doing and look at that? And are we okay with that? Everything projected is bonus. Can we live with this worst case scenario?
Yeah. And, we have that phrase in our house that the girls have learned to say anytime they feel that anything's a challenge, it's what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
The question gets asked, what's the worst that can happen? Dad, I can't quite get this figured out. Dad, I don't know what to do here. Dad, I can't. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, it's got a little dramatically funny now. It's like, well, I guess I could die. Well, yeah, I suppose that's one of the worst things that can happen. Okay,
Dad, you're so negative, Dad.
Beyond that, what's the next worst thing that can happen? And they kind of work their way back up into realizing that sometimes it's over exaggerated just a little bit. And so we have to ask ourselves too, what's the worst that can happen? With my time, my energy, my money, my situation, can I do this other thing while doing another? What's the worst that can happen? It's just a phrase that helps refocus into looking at those things that we would normally, or sometimes people like to push down. You don't want to talk about it. It could be looked at as badly. Or here's an example, right? Because when I went through this, I had trouble with a financial situation with one of my partners at one point. The worst thing that could happen, I thought at that point, was the business would be ending and I'd have to go somewhere else. Well, it turned out I had to go bankrupt because of the situation with the funds, the investor, the way that it had been structured as a business and what they had been doing with that business. My lawyer literally said, you need to be indemnified down to your personal level. And the way you're going to do that is bankrupt yourself. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. So that was a strategic business move, but it's there and it's on my record and people will sometimes find it, or they'll think that, hey, you know what? He went bankrupt. You can't trust that guy. He doesn't know how to manage money. He doesn't know how to do anything. And the answer to that is, well, I certainly know how to do it a lot better now. And I certainly know how to trust certain people differently. And I've put in better safeguards and mechanisms to ensuring that doesn't happen in business again, that I don't receive or put myself into a position with partners where that could ever occur again. And those lessons are just not taught. Those are learned.
Yeah.
They're learned and they're tough.
Okay. So I've got to dig into this one a little bit because you're speaking to someone who avoided all types of partnership for years, 2 decades at least. I avoided all partnerships. If it meant a partnership, I refused to it. Now, I refuse to it, not for the smart reason of worrying about assets and liabilities, but rather because there was always a fear of what if they take advantage of you, or what if you do something wrong, and then now they're going to know, at least if you just do something wrong on your own, then you just fix it on your own.
That's right.
And so I can say that I had a deep-seated fear for a lot of years towards partnerships. And how did you, but you've been doing partnerships for so long, and you've done them well, you've done them poorly. And what gave you that framework to be able to move in the world of partnerships?
Well, I mean, honestly, the original reasons I even got into the concept of a partnership or joined hips with someone else was there was a fear that certain aspects of what they were doing, I couldn't do it myself, even poorly, like couldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
So it was fear-driven concept that this other person can somehow make up some major component of something I cannot do. What I learned differently was to position more time and energy towards learning the things I didn't know well enough to just be dangerous at it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be the accountant, but I need to be dangerous. Like, dangerous enough that I know the accountant who's doing could do better, could do differently, or is taking advantage of situations, or is just not taking advantage of situations. And so I've studied a lot more into the different areas where I felt they were weaknesses. You've heard of a SWOT analysis. Some of those listening might know what that means: the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I tend to kind of go back and look at what those things are in terms of the relationships. And obviously I fell on some very hard, and it was pretty easy to figure out where the threats were. What I didn't always correctly anticipate, or I didn't correctly address, was the opportunities. So how do you really how do you take an opportunity and address it correctly so you know the strengths and the threats and the weaknesses? And that is actually one of the things that I've taught my people to understand better and better as they do these business models. It doesn't have to require a partner. We actually have a phrase in our company is keep it all and keep it small. So if you're better at managing certain aspects of people's timelines, if you are better at objectives and key results, you might not need a partner. What you need is a lieutenant. What you need is a very strong second. And if you can give them very strong objectives and key results, there may not even be a requirement to put them in, what's called the operating agreement of your business. You don't even need to write them into ownership. Or if you do, there are smarter ways to do it. There are ways to offer common stock and preferred stock and no stock at all, but voting rights. There's a way to offer them a percentage of earned buyout if they are a part of the company's success for long term. There are other ways to create quote unquote partnership relationships that do not put the business in jeopardy of that person's inability to do something. And even in our own partnership now, we have certain things we've come to agree that no one spends money without the other one. Some partners will say, well, you can spend up to 10,000 or so. And if you do that, that's okay. We just made an understanding that, no one spends money without the other person knowing about it. Right. But in your respective lines of business, the longer we have been together, the less we question what the other person needs to do. If Reed comes to me and says, hey, I want to try this out, it's going to cost $5,000. I'm like, go for it. Right. Because I have that level, it's an implicit level of trust now that we've gained through troubles. We didn't just work 9 years straight. We had a couple of years where we didn't even talk to each other. Right. Because there's mess behind that too. Right. I mean, there's pros and cons, and we both made some mistakes in different areas, but we came back together with more mutual footing. So I think the question then gets back to wrap that all around to, do you really need a partner? And if you do, can you really address the specific strength, weaknesses, or opportunities that person brings in? Or do you need to get them involved at all in the first place? And if you do, should it be more of a performance-driven relationship? Should it have OKRs on it? Should it even be a written business proposal or a business relationship? I think, again, people are looking for shortcuts. And to just grab a partner and throw them into business is really, in my experience now, an attempt to make a shortcut.
Well, there's a whole lot there to unpack.
There's a lot there. There is. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that we are inundated now. Viewers are inundated now with people that are able to provide you coaching and programs and all of this kind of stuff, and everything is perfect. They've gone from zero, from $100 in their pocket to $6 million or whatever it is, and they've done it without any hardships. And there is something refreshing about hearing the number of things that you've gone through, quite honestly, including divorce, which you threw out there, because you know, I've been involved in a number of different areas, including relationship counseling, and I can tell you that a lot of people want to go to someone to get advice who has the perfect marriage. And I've said, no, typically you want to go to someone who has been through who's been through the storm, and maybe done it wrong.
Yes.
Because they will actually know some of the pitfalls that are there, as opposed to someone who's only, it's like the fair weather sailor, right? Yes. Sailor who's only at the sail in good weather. They never build up those techniques or the nerve to be able to handle stormy seas. And so I really love what you're creating here in terms of just being prepared, whether it be partnerships, whether it be just business in general, being prepared for the worst. Yes. And understanding that that's going to be there and that's going to be part of the journey. And yet you're there as a mentor to try to help people navigate some of those things.
Oh, absolutely. We don't always talk about
business, the road ahead.
Yeah, we don't always talk about business. I mean, a lot of the times the conversations I have with my clients are related to life.
Yeah.
They're related to fears. They're related to concerns. They're related to confidence. And am I making the right decision? And because I've already made the wrong decision in that area they're asking me about, I can in confidence say, this is the direction you should consider going. This is why you should consider it. Here's my own experience if you're willing to listen to it and learn from it. Avoid the potholes, right? You know, avoid the mistakes in the money that I spent the wrong way. Avoid the mistakes and the time and energy, and avoid the mistakes that I've made in certain areas where I wouldn't allow other people in to give me feedback, to give me personal comments, and without taking it all in rejection and actually listening to it, right? And not listening in rejection as it is. And that's a big component. If I had done that, I wouldn't have helped crash my marriage. While it's easy for me to look at it and say, well, it's all her fault, and she may look at this and say, well, it's all his fault. I certainly know for myself, there are many things I could have done differently. There are many things I take ownership now in, which I now look back and see very easily. And hindsight is 2020. I can look at that and go, wow, yeah, you were an arrogant prick who was really selfish and stupid and immature. And that was really dumb. And take ownership for that. Right now, being married for almost 15 years. With a wonderful wife and 4 daughters, we've still had our own struggles and we still had our own challenges, but I did not deal with it in the same way the old guy would have dealt with it.
Right. I love that. I love that because really those are the variables of life.
Yes.
And oftentimes we almost need someone to help us with all of those more. Business for the most part is not actually that difficult. It's balancing all the other things that come in and try to distract you, or should I do this? Should I do that? And you're going
squirrels. We call them squirrels around here, like squirrel,
Squirrel, right?
There's squirrels everywhere.
I think probably the thing that I hear the most is for guys that are trying to do too much. They try to, hey, I'm okay. I need to be good at this and this, because then I can help more people. And they're trying to advertise that they can do all of these things. Now I'm in the area of finance, so people are they're always trying to talk about all the different areas that they can do.
Yes.
And I don't know. My advice is always, so you do all of those things, maybe okay, but nobody knows you for anything that you do well. And that you're the guy. Hey, regarding this, you're the guy. But when you're talking about business and when you're teaching, do you talk about niche marketing or is there some other way to know when to be a Walmart and do everything?
We focus predominantly on brands and the concept of branding. Okay. And not everybody understands what that means, even though they may understand, say, Nike and Reebok and Coke and Pepsi. They don't quite understand the brand or emotional affinity of it. So when we niche, it's typically in the brand that we're going after. Now that market would be, it could be evergreen, could be home, kitchen, sales, this kind of stuff. But the niche itself could be someone who's really passionate about bike riding. Not the kind of person who's willing to accept the $30 Chinese seat that feels like you're sitting on a brick of steel. They're the kind of people who are like, I'll pay $89 for the gel cushion one with a hole in the middle that doesn't crunch and munch my goodies. And because I love to go Pikes Peak, riding, and I used to do that. And so I didn't want the cheap crap, and I wanted the good caliper brakes, and I didn't want the cheap panniers. And there is a different level of different people with different affinities. And so we've always looked into the market and have been developing brands that are relational to that affinity seller, right? It's the more solution-based oriented customer. It is, I'm willing to pay for X and Y for the benefits I already know I should be getting. And they are more brand driven. So we niche into the brands, and from there we go down into the products. And one of the ways
why is being brand driven important?
At the end of the day, your buyers are typically only in it for what they want. You yourself are in it for only what I want. So the brand is literally helping to validate that they are giving you exactly what you want. Because this is for me. This is what I want. It's the best thing here. And it may make me jump higher or run faster or be taller or go shorter or make me look better or more pretty or make me look more ugly. I mean, whatever it is, right? The point is there's a solution oriented and an emotional decision buying mechanism that is occurring behind that. And the phrase we have is double the understanding of your customer and you will double your revenue. So that comes from deep understanding of your brand, in which once you identify a series of products that meets the solution as the fastest and best solution possible to fix their problem, you can continue to go into that brand deeper and deeper and drag customers into longer lifetime value with you, who will then obviously tell others and continue to follow you along.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit more time to do that, but it is also the best way to create cash flow. Cash flow is king, as we know. Revenue is vanity. You've heard this, right? Profit is sanity and cash flow is king. So
yeah. I haven't heard the first part, but
yeah. So man. So the cash flow king in the e-commerce business, right, is the ability to obviously get, paid continuously from the products you're selling, from customers who are continuing to buy, who are coming back. And we have ways of doing that inside of the marketplace in Amazon called Subscribe and Save, which you might be a part of. In my house, we call it Subscribe and Spend. Because if you don't spend money, you save. That's kind of the concept, right? So with all these ladies, we get these packages all the time delivered. But yeah, it's going down into that deep and having a deep understanding of that brand and the solution that brand will solve for the customers that are within it, and then continuing to go deeper and deeper into that.
How did you come upon that?
Branding wasn't a really strong concept of mine. Until I started running paid traffic. So one of the things I did online when I was outside of the IBM sphere, I left them in 2007 and set out to set up my own series of companies. I started as a management consulting company. I had IBM literally hire me back to go fix the projects that were falling apart. And instead of the $50 an hour they were paying me when I was there, they were paying me $250 an hour to come back and fix the problems. As a management consultant, and you put a management consultant in front of you, you can charge $250 to $500 an hour. So I brought a team along with me, and I started into that. I had a high-level management staffing team for quite a while, and while they were busy on projects, and we were subcontracting with IBM on a number of things, including the 2010 census project and stuff at Boeing and other public and private stuff, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I got back to the things that I originally left college for in the first place, which was to get to e-commerce. And so I started running paid traffic. And really at that point, it was learning about why a customer buys and really getting into the brain power of a mass marketing customer identification. At that point, I chose mobile marketing. I was running traffic on literally uploading spreadsheets into the servers that were going out to the mobile networks because there was no web interfaces. So we were putting them in spreadsheets and launching campaigns, and we were doing in dating apps and install things. And we hit a number of gold mines in places you wouldn't even imagine, like South Africa. Dating apps took off like crazy. And so we were making it really fast and furious and starting to realize, brand driven affinity is a very powerful, obviously, motivator for a purchasing mechanism. And that's when I decided I needed to get into the physical product space now. I need to take that knowledge out of that, making all those leads and money for somebody else. I need to start branding my own products and really get into that. Yeah. And when I was in that fact-finding phase, in that research mode, while I was about ready to jump off the cliff, a friend of mine said, "Hey, did you know you could sell on Amazon?" And I said, no. Is it like eBay? Like, because I don't want to do that. Like it doesn't interest me at all. He's like, no, it's not the same at all. Amazon literally has this system. It's called Fulfilled by Amazon. They'll handle the shipping and logistics all the way to the last mile on the customer. And I thought, oh, that's kind of powerful. So I started to find some products that weren't even mine yet and just start throwing it at Amazon. And just to see how it would work, how the engine would work. And come to find out, it was an engine. And during my time at IBM, we were learning to build latent semantic search engines. I got to work with the Watson computing team and RMonk, which was great. Learned about human machine language learning and artificial intelligence, and had to literally get machines to predict customer reactions, which was cool because I got to be the dumbest guy in the room, listening to these guys go on about this and just trying to glean as much knowledge as I could. My job was basically to translate theirs into the technical speak and into the business language, and really define how that would look as an entire project, a program, or a company. Their job was to deliver the mechanisms. So when I got to realizing that Amazon was a giant search engine, just like the ones we had been building in my IBM days, it clicked that this was a giant traffic mechanism. That's how I saw it. It's just a giant traffic source. It just, unlike Google, it was a product buying traffic source. And Jeff Bezos made the mantra, we're going to sell all things to all people in 30 seconds or less. And I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. So we took the concept of that, found out how it was working, used and kind of engineered a product launch process that kind of helped get traction and traffic. And then took branding that I had learned through that traffic and affiliate marketing, and started to brand products into the marketplace. And from there, things just took off like crazy.
Okay, I got to tell you how sexy this conversation is.
Hey, now, Neil, I'm a married man. Come on.
Yeah, well, I am too. But, I'm extremely turned on at the moment by everything you said.
Got yourself a business.
I mean, you just said the words machine learning, and I got really aroused.
Yes, machine learning, fun times.
Now, I selfishly have to say this just because I know so little about it, and I've been trying to learn about these things. I'm like, man, there's so much. It's amazing to me having, being my age and watching the number of things come around, including watching the internet come into play. I remember learning programming as a kid on a pet computer.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Commodores and the Ataris.
Commodore was like worlds ahead by that point in time. But I remember we were able to get a line to do this.
Make it so.
We were like, wow, that was amazing. That was what the entire program did, was make the line do this.
What got it for me was the green screen terminal inboxes of email. Like you could get someone to reply almost instantly while, the green screen typing it in, hit I to get to your inbox. You remember the green screen email days?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, they replied already. Like, this is incredible. I mean, those first times you do that, we take it so for granted now, but that was incredible.
Yeah, I was like, how did it work? How did that do
it was
that?
incredible to watch.
I couldn't even understand it. But so now as you're talking about these things, and I'm like, wow, there are so many technologies that we know nothing about, but they are going to so shape business, e-commerce, and just the way that we
big data management.
It can shape so many different things.
Well, the thing of that is, so while I had that technology background, one of the things that tripped me up, let's call it what it is, was the concept that the technology or mechanism would make me the money. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about online businesses, maybe at certain age levels or not. I know the younger generations, if you will, 18, 30-year-olds, if you will, are just like, hey, I get on YouTube, or I get a gaming channel or esports, or I get out there right now and I just put content into the world. Yeah, that's my mechanism. I get it. I hit record. I can do it from my phone. I can make money. Like they understand that that's not terribly complex. Right. They don't need to know how the button works or how the system got there. None of that was, it's just like push and go. So many people get caught up, I think, today in the real mistake that the business of online money making is a mechanism. It is a mechanics, and that's how I make money. The more buttons I push or the more hours I work pushing that button, I will make more money. I envisioned at times somebody sitting at a desk just hitting the big red button 100 times and looking up and going, oh, look how much money I made today. And then sitting down and slamming that button a bunch more times. That's not how it works, right? The mechanism can be taught to anybody. And my virtual assistants can do it. We have 14 and 16-year-old kids that do it and are taught how to do it. They don't understand the concepts of the business, and the parents and people come in and they do. And we teach them how to understand the business, because the mechanics are not what makes the money. It is understanding the customer. And the mechanism we chose to incubate that understanding was Amazon's FBA system, because it's got 200 million people now, almost 10 years later, 200 million people a month going through it, 628 million a day. It's a lot. Okay. I don't need to understand where they're coming or what buttons they're pushing to get there. I just need to understand that they're there, and I can put my, lemonade stand on that 7-lane highway and put up my good offer, and off we go. Right.
Wow. Okay. So the question is, this is what you do in your mentoring. You try to show people how they can build businesses through Amazon business. Wait, I forgot. FBA.
It's called Fulfilled by Amazon.
Fulfilled by Amazon. That's it.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a mechanism that basically allows us to not have to have a warehouse.
Yeah.
We don't staff any employees, and we don't handle the last mile to the customer. The products by Amazon's shipping and logistics and inventory manages that. Our product gets sent into their warehouses. They're picked and shipped to the customer from there. So our job really is to understand the customer branding and product and do the marketing. Yeah. So it really has nothing to do with pushing the buttons at the end of the day. And so what we teach people is to understand, first and foremost, the business. We are business builders. That's what we've done. It's what I've talked about all day here is we build businesses. We chose e-commerce as a mechanism based on experience. And we chose that platform to focus on because it had traffic and people who were buying things in 30 seconds or less. Yeah. And that is one of the biggest problems all online people face when they're trying to make money, is getting eyeballs on the offer. Well, Amazon solved that problem, and it solves it for people who understand how to take advantage of it. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of buyers, and it's, they're making as much right now as they were making last year before the holiday season. So we can only imagine what's going to happen in the next 2 months here. As we wrap into this year's holiday season, demand is becoming incredible. So we literally teach people how to run the business by the numbers. We teach them how to learn what the hell to sell, because that's always the first question everyone else asks. What do I sell? It's actually really easy when you go through a process, a numerical data-driven process that has to have the numbers make sense. The numbers have to make sense at the product profit line. The net profit, they have to make sense. So it rolls to the brand, and the brand rolls to the P&L, and the P&L rolls to the business. It has to all make sense. And so you got to really understand what's profitable. And many people don't do that when they get started in this business model. I coach many people who have failed or took other courses or programs or these kinds of things, took a YouTube or whatever and got out of their own, and find out, they're making 50 cents for every unit sold. And they're like, well, how are you making $35, $50, $75 in profit for every unit sold? And I'm saying, well, let me show you how you do this by the numbers. So we go for a very different look at the market. As that cliffhanger joke a minute ago, jumping off, without a parachute, we don't marry any of our products. People get so in love with their product concept. Call it my divorce analogy or whatever. It's don't marry a product, steal someone else's girlfriend instead, because there are plenty of girlfriends inside of Amazon you can steal away. Right? Still married, just borrowing an analogy.
Yeah.
So there's so many products in Amazon already that tell you that they're already selling. You don't have to guess. They're already there. You have to do what we call innovate. Similarity and familiarity, that's a fun word, familiarity, equal trust. Amazon system of trust. I can build up a brand that no one's ever heard of and topple the other 4 brands that no one's ever heard of and make a $100,000 a month business in 6 months or less, and repeat that process predictably every time it goes to market. Right. So we have 90-day run rates and quarterly, if you will, and we've got annual run rates of expectations. We don't marry them because we know that certain products have life cycles. They'll only go so far. We'll replace them with another test product. And if that one goes great, we scale it and we keep going. We use a baseball analogy, right? If you know baseball to some degree, if you hit 300, that means for every 10
you're amazing
times at bat, you failed 7 times.
Yeah.
And you still can get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In baseball, absolutely.
Yep. So in e-commerce, it's the same way.
Right.
Okay. So you look at it in terms of not every product is a winner, but every product has an opportunity for me to learn which one is the winner.
Yeah.
And as I find that winner, it will scale itself for you when you do it the way we do it inside the system. It will literally move into what we call Amazon's Slipstream. It's kind of like the combination lock. You kind of turn it once to the left, you turn it back to the right, you turn it and click, it unlocks. Amazon's system is similar. Yeah. When you get your product in the market, you're going to turn the clock a little, to the right this way. You're going to hear it click. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the left. It's still clicked. By the time you get into that Slipstream and unlock that, Amazon will send you enormous amounts of buyer traffic. But people overcomplicate that too much, right? And they get too much caught up in the mechanics and not enough in why did that product even reach that point in the system in the first place? And it literally had to do with my product, my message, and my brand resonated best with my customer avatar, who understood in 30 seconds that my product would be their solution.
Wow.
Which means my conversion rates inside of Amazon are incredibly different than a standard website conversion online store. Right. That's 1 to 3% conversion rates. We see 30 to 50% conversion rates on our listings and products inside of Amazon.
Wow.
So our goal is then to find multiple versions of those products. So we find 5 products, it finds another 5 products, and we continue that process looking exactly at each number and only launching the product if it reaches the right metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And then you continue to test that out so that in a year you can have 100 SKUs. You can have 100 SKUs, you do 5 million a month. We've proven that in our case studies with other stores who did that with us and got to $1 million a month and then 5 million a month. It's just a process and it's data driven. So we teach people how to understand the business really first, and be the business manager and the fiscal manager and understand the people and the things you need to do in the business to really make it run and the things activities, masters, productivities, you got to shove those aside because you think you may be making money, but really you're just looking like it. You need to be focused on the revenue generating activities, the RGAs, only focus on those. So total accountability is one of the ways we help people get to 7 figures. Is we push them to stay in the line. We keep their blinders on. And that gives people a much higher success rate to understand the business and the model and continue to repeat the process of testing. We know the market, but we're still not smart enough to tell it what it wants. We are smart enough to be quiet, shut up, sit down and listen and have it tell us what it wants.
Right.
And when it tells us what it wants, we have a couple ways of asking it. Are you sure? Are you sure? And if the answers come back, yep, we're sure, then it's like that product can go very quickly. And from 0 to 6 months inception can have $100,000 a month business running. That's on a predictable growth and trajectory of growth rate. That's kind of an expectation. If it doesn't meet those certain metrics, what do we adjust? What do we change? Because we're building that parachute, right?
So I got to ask then, if someone's watching, how do they know that, hey, this is something I should be looking into? Like, this is for me. Because I hear lots of people that talk about, I'm interested in e-commerce, but it sounds like you not only know who you're looking for when you're helping someone build a business, but it probably sounds like who you're able to help mentor.
Well, people typically that work with me, just to give you some examples of who they are, they're people who really understand that if I got 10 to 15 hours a week, I can make this business work in the next 12 months. That I understand the concept of almost automated income. Everybody jumps to passive income. It doesn't really appreciate almost automated income. And that is, if I work 10 to 15 hours a week and I'm making more in a month than some people make in a year, am I happy with that? And most people would say, yeah, I am. So almost automated income is just as good. Can it be made passive? Absolutely. But that's not necessarily the first goal, nor should it be of someone who really understands business. They understand in 6 to 12 months, there are opportunities for me to automate components of this business model once it's fully matured and running and is moving. They also understand every business is worth more in the end when you sell it than at any time during the business building phase. That they know it in 12 to 18 months, they could sell these businesses for 3 to 4 times the profit. And that really is the opportunity. That is what we call our platinum principle. So people also understand diversification of money, putting money to work for you. Don't put your soldiers in the bank, get them out there. If you feel that Wall Street is too risky, try a Wealth with Wall Street alternative. Maybe consider infinite banking or e-commerce or some other way to deploy that, or Airbnbs or short-term rentals, but don't just let it sit in the bank.
Yeah.
Put it to work. And those types of people typically understand that. They may be even doing it. They maybe even have multiple franchises like some of my clients, but they're looking for a way to deploy that capital. And they like the concept that this is both virtual, which is the Amazon's marketplace and channel, but it's also physical inventory that they're purchasing.
Yeah.
So it's not an intangible asset, right? Yeah. It has a tangible aspect to it. It has inventory. And they have control over brand, which brings us to the last parts of this, which are the intellectual property. What's that business actually worth? It's worth the components of the intellectual property. It's the trademarks. It's the brand. It's the, it's its registration on Amazon's system for brand registry. All of those components, including the products and manufacturing supply chain, have intrinsic value to the business. You need to be able to put those things in place and understand how to do that from the very beginning, thinking with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And my business builders typically understand that because they've done it in other aspects of business already. Right. So they may never have done e-commerce, but they may have ran an accounting practice for 25 years successfully. They may have, been in a multiple Chick-fil-A franchise solution or run 9 Subways. They understand the concepts of that diversification of capital, and that e-com is just one area that they can explore to literally help me in a franchise-like model without the ownership or the profit requirements, help them do it. And my big evil capitalistic goal is, if I teach them every component to avoid and everything they should do, that business is worth a lot. And I'll take it to my buyer network, and we run a brokering M&A. So when they build those businesses up, everybody wins in the end. And that's one of the ways we work with our clients.
Wow. So what's next for you guys?
Right now, we're continuing to expand the portfolio side, the M&A and brokering relationship side, to continue to open those doors for people who are close but not quite there. They don't quite understand things of like upside potential. They don't understand operational independence yet. We help them focus on some of those things and continue to grow those up. Really, what's next for us is to continue to sell brands. We have one out for sale right now. Continue to grow our own, and just continue to work in one of the fastest growing markets still, double digits in the last 24 months in e-commerce. Bank of America Forrester Research says 21 trillion is coming online by 2030. So we're going to continue to launch products and brands. That's what we're going to continue to do.
Wow. Love it. Love it. I'm sure we could have gone down the road of any one of those aspects, and we didn't really even go down the road of exiting, which
that's another whole topic.
Yeah, that it really is. And
yep.
It's probably the most important one, because like you said, you've got to whatever you do, you got to do it with the end in mind, right? And oftentimes, I've told people this many times, because anyone can tell you how to put your money into something, but do you know how you're going to get your money out? And do you have more than one way of getting your money out? And I've seen many people fail because they'll put their money into something and then they don't know how to get it out. It's stuck in there and they've watched it dwindle away. So I would love, that's definitely a conversation for us to have in the future. And I'd love to have you back on the show at some point and talk about that.
I'd love to do that, Neil. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Wow. Any final words that we should share with people? How do they get a hold of you? Oh my goodness, how did we miss that?
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. I would say, if fear or the idea or concept that you may not be able to do some of these things in business, or you struggle with the concept of just getting started, you have to remember that you've already failed if you didn't start at all in the first place. All right. So if you consider, well, what if I start this and fail? The problem is not the business model, it is you. Like, let's call it straight up, because you haven't even started it. You've already failed. So the concept that you start it and fail is actually backwards, right? The second component is, if fear is holding you up at all, I'd recommend the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways by Susan Jeffries, which is a great book that'll take you through some mental exercises on how to continue to move past certain points of fear or questioning you may have in any aspect of your life, not just business. So I would encourage you guys to take a look at that. And final thing, and is, to give you some insights, Good to Great still has very relevant understandings of business and concepts. Jim Collins was, his group, and I think they just foretold the future in terms of so many concepts of that business that we are missing in certain components of businesses today that I think we need to bring back and or learn those lessons that were taught very well in that book. So I'd recommend those definitely to people who want to get some insight today on some of the topics we talked about. Finally, you can go to voltagedm.com and check out what I'm doing. VOLTAGEDM.com, voltagedigitalmarketing.com. There's a free little video. I have a conversation with Kevin Harrington, one of my partners, on there. We talk about building businesses and what it takes to do that. It's about a 48-minute or so just overview and goes into some of the details of the way we do the business model. You're welcome to check that out. It's a free resource there. And of course, any of the media links. And just Google my last name, like we were joking about earlier. Most people spell it back to me, TWA. It's not the airlines. No, I don't own it. And there's a whole nother story of trouble I've had dealing with that last name. But if you Google my name, you'll find my LinkedIn or Facebook. You'll see who I am. You'll see what I'm about. And you're more than welcome to connect with me in any mechanism that makes sense to you.
Love it. Well, guys, you've been watching the Neil and Neil Show here on the Leadership to Wealth podcast. Neil, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing.
Thanks for having me.
Man, you really have you condensed probably an entire workshop into this amount of time. That was amazing.
Thank you.
And guys, definitely look them up, check them out. And if you're thinking about business, if you're thinking about e-commerce, make sure you do your due diligence. And there is a lot of value in learning from someone who's already been down the road and made mistakes and can help you navigate those minefields. So Neil, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Neil. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys later. Take care.